What do Madlib, Portishead and Boards of Canada have in common? They all drew from an obscure archive of sounds, recordings from the 60s and 70s that were born out of sheer practicality. In that time, film and TV producers needed affordable background music, so labels like KPM and the Wolfe stepped in, hiring some top-tier session musicians to record entire albums of different moods. Because these records were never made for the charts, the artists had rare freedom to experiment, blending jazz, psychedelia and early electronics into something both functional and visionary. Pressed in small numbers and sent only to broadcasters, they became long forgotten. But decades later, producers like Madlib sampled those forgotten tunes directly.
Tripping off the beat kinda, dripping off the meat grinder, heat niner, pimping, stripping, soft, sweet minor.
While artists like Portishead or Boards of Canada absorbed their atmospheres and reimagined its cinematic, sonic landscapes for a new era. And if you look closer, you'll see that the influence of library music stretches much further than that into the present day. I recently started compiling some of my favorite library tracks onto cassette, and as a little exercise I wanted to challenge myself to write and record a track myself that could fit neatly onto that cassette, and in true library fashion without any intention of ever releasing it. When Yamaha asked whether I wanted to check out their MODX M8, it was really the perfect timing because it has a vast number of these iconic sounds that was gonna need for that. Alright, so here we have it, and before I start, maybe a super quick overview. What we're dealing with here are three distinct engines for generating sound. The first is sort of like a classic virtual analog engine, so you can do regular subtractive synthesis. Yeah, it's already like a perfect CS80 type analog pad sound. And then what's going to be even more important for what I'm trying to do is the sample-based engine. Yeah, so sort of like actual audio recordings of, for example, in this case, an electric piano. And then it also has an FM engine, but I don't really see that here in the library vibe. And as you can see, you have various slots here to place your favorite presets and have them ready at any moment. And I actually already did that. Yeah, you can just pretty much press one of these slots and then you can browse and even have these subcategories, and you can find what you're looking for extremely quickly. These are the sounds I came up with. First up, I needed a bass guitar, an electric bass, because I don't have that. And I felt like this one was very neutral, but had a good substance. So maybe I see something like a consistent arpeggiated bass line that gives a bit of drive and substance below. Up next I have this electric piano sound that's not quite a Rhodes and not quite a Wurlitzer either, but I really like the timbre. Oh, this one's also insane. It's like, this must be the virtual analog engine, I assume. Because this sounds like this Solina string ensemble, which is also like a staple. It's this polyphonic analog synth specialized in giving you only very few options for sound design actually, but the patch that you have is basically this analog pad sound trying to be strings. And you hear this a lot in library music. Then here, as I already showed you, the CS80 type pad sound. Another staple in library music and also one of my favorite instruments. It's like a Hammond organ. And it even has this control here for the speed of the Leslie speaker. Yeah, in case you don't know, it's like a rotating speaker that's then being mic'd up, creating this acoustic form of modulation in the sound. And I think the original also just has two speed settings, just slow and fast. And I just love this characteristic of like a long chord being held and then modulating the intensity of the sound. between these two positions, I feel like it has a really psychedelic quality also. And then what else? Yeah, I think this is now more of a classic Wurlitzer electric piano. And lastly, more of a classic, plain, simple electric guitar sound. So let's see what I come up with. Alright, so I played around a bit with these sounds and this is what I came up with. And what I did is I started out with this drum loop, which is actually the only sample in here. And I took it because it already has this 70s vibe with the spring reverb on some of the drums. And it really matched, yeah, kind of the atmosphere. And by the way, all of these sounds, I recorded them directly to tape. First of all, to get this kind of atmosphere and pressure and the real 70s sonic signature also. And I was already driving everything a bit hot. And then I have this compression already, this transient behavior, and of course also the noise. And what I did is, even if I recorded a bass sound, for example, here with the bass guitar patch, I recorded this just on one track, actually, because that's how you would have done it. So now, also the noise from this track is just mono noise. And if I were to pan it around, the tape noise would actually move around with it. And I wanted to simulate this behavior. Because I knew I'm not an instrumentalist on that level of these session musicians, so I at least had to get the sonic signature right. Then I have this theme here from the electric piano. By the way, the bass line, it has this little variation here from time to time, which is great for transitions into new segments of the track. Yeah, this is actually the only other sound that was not from the Yamaha, because here I just recorded the guitar myself. I recorded it through this vintage phaser by Electro Harmonics, and I think it really has this, brings this psychedelic rock kind of 70s quality into it, especially with the phaser. Then here I use the polysynth patch and send it through the space echo to get these psychedelic atmospheric sounds that was then just panning around. Also regarding the panning and all the production techniques, I really try to just do stuff that would have been possible and common to be done in the 70s. So for example, also with the panning, I only did stuff that you could have done if you were recording the mix live and there's maybe 2 or 3 people at the mixing desk. Having that little choreography of what sound is going to pan where, when. I think the library music, it was more monocentric than this track actually, because it was meant for playback on televisions and radio and all that stuff. So I think in these recordings there wasn't as much stereo stuff going on. Yeah, exactly. What else do we have? Obviously here the Hammond organ is still missing, and that was one of my favorite sounds. Also, I recorded 2 tracks from it. One lower one, yeah, where you can also hear me playing around with the modulation, and then a higher layer where I play around with it in a different tempo. Yeah, then regarding the arrangement, we have this intro here. And then there's just different combinations of 2 or 3 of these themes working together. And then I think here in the middle, there's a moment where everything really comes together nicely as sort of like a highlight moment. And then also for the Solina, which you might have already noticed, the string ensemble type sound, I actually played this more percussive string chords. And then lastly, I think what's missing is just the sound effects. And here also I wanted to limit myself to stuff that could have been reasonably achieved in the 70s. So I started out here with a New York compression. Yeah, so basically just super brutal parallel compression here with a 21:1 ratio. And I did a bit of an EQ on it to reduce how much of the kick and how much of the snare is going into this compressor, to ensure that these bigger hits wouldn't trigger the compressor too much relative to the other sounds. Yeah, it's just like super heavily compressed and mixed in. And it just gives a lot more presence in the mids and highs and more substance somehow. Then here an EMT plate reverb for a subtle spatial feeling. Also here, I think this was also available in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. Dimension D chorus effect, sending even the bass guitar, but yeah, also most of the other harmonic and melodic elements into it. And then lastly, and this is maybe my favorite trick that I discovered from just listening to these old records from that time, there was very often a spring reverb. And for example, the actual instrument was panned to the right, but you would hear the spring reverb panned to the left. And this would actually make the spring reverb much more effective in making it feel like a space. So what I did here to cheat a bit so that I don't have to use 5 different sends with individual mono spring reverbs, what I did is I obviously put it into stereo mode, using this one by Arturia also. And then I swapped the left-right channels. So if I now, for example, play the guitar pan to the right and it goes into the spring reverb, you're going to hear the spring reverb to the left and vice versa. I think where you hear it most clearly is Solina. And the good thing here is also you can do it even for 2 sounds at once, and this one return channel is going to do it. Yeah. So here I'm playing the Solina on the left and the guitars on the right, and the effect still works for both of them separately. Yeah, all right, I guess my mission is done here. Time to record it onto my cassette.